put you in under the wheels.
Perfected.
Welcome to Under the Wheels. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Gabe.
And in today's episode, we get super Irish with the Banshees of Inisherin, the latest movie from Martin McDonagh. The latest stage play adapted to a movie from Martin McDonagh. Question: have you seen any of Martin McDonagh's plays? Are you familiar with any of them? I'm not either. Although I have a feeling that all of them end very depressingly, with potentially a lot of death.
Or some death.
Yeah.
Is there any death ex machina like in this movie, though?
Death ex machina. Sometimes when I take like a breath and then start laughing harder, it's because I'm about to say something and then I'm like, well, one, it's a spoiler and I shouldn't mention it. And two, the more I think about it, the worse it gets. Oh my God. Okay, so what's your relationship with Martin McDonagh movies?
I've seen...
Before we get into this.
I've seen In Bruges, and I liked it a lot. And I saw 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri, and I liked it well enough. And that's it.
Okay.
What about you?
I saw In Bruges, and I didn't get it. So I want to go back and rewatch it. I saw 7 Psychopaths, and that's where I started forming this thought in my mind that Martin McDonagh's movies always have these really good premises. It always has a good premise. It has a good premise. Ooh, circumvent it. So he creates a good premise, and then as the movie goes on, it kind of just like falls away. And then it kind of just ends. Like, I would not be able to tell you how 7 Psychopaths ended. I just remember that it sounded like a cool concept, and I was not a fan of the execution.
I wouldn't be able to tell you either, because I haven't seen it.
Because you haven't seen it? Yeah, I don't know. And then 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. Again, the opening concept was really interesting and really engaging. And then by the end, I was like, why did I waste my time on this? It was well done, I guess, but the ending just really, like, it left a really bad taste in my mouth, to the point where I was just like, I completely forgot about that movie. I was like, wait, what was that other Martin McDonagh movie that I saw? So that's my history with Martin McDonagh movies. I want to like them more than I actually do.
Mm.
All right, so let's get into the Banshees of Inisherin. What do you give the Banshees of Inisherin? I just like saying the name, apparently. What do you give Banshees?
Witness.
Yeah, I give it a witness too. I think this is actually the one movie that I wasn't expecting very much of Martin McDonagh, and I really liked. All right, Gabe. So as we always do now, 60 plus episodes in, can you give us a brief synopsis of what happens in the Banshees of Inisherin?
Sure. So, hold on. Look at these people's names.
Pedrick and Colm. So Colin Farrell is Pedrick. Brendan Gleeson is Colm. Carrie Condon is Siobhan. Oh, God. You know what? Maybe I should reduce it from a witness to it being fine because Barry Keoghan is in it.
I know. He's the one knock on the movie.
Only person that has a regular name with Dominic.
Yeah, so Pedrick and Colm are friends. And then one day, Colm decides he doesn't want to talk to Pedrick anymore. He says, Pedrick, leave me alone. Don't ever talk to me again. And Pedrick's kind of a simple guy, and he's like, why? And so they kind of like argue about this, and Colm eventually comes clean and is like, look, I'm getting old. I feel like my life hasn't amounted to anything. So I want to focus what remains of the time I have on Earth on making things and trying to build a legacy that will outlast me, which Pedrick doesn't understand at all. And this just sort of escalates through various things to where, like, Colm is like, if you don't stop talking to me, I'm going to start chopping my fingers off and throwing them at you. And yeah, hilarity ensues. Kind of intermixed in all this is Pedrick's sister, Siobhan, who is kind of a bookish intellectual that no one likes except Colm. Like, she and Colm get along. And then there's kind of the town idiot, Dominic, who lives with his abusive father, who's the town constable. And they just sort of float in and out and do various shenanigans.
Casually talk about child molestation and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So the police officer's name, by the way, I have to say this just because we're having fun with Gaelic names, right? Gaelic names, yeah. Celtic names. His name is Pater.
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 He's a paterphile.
He's a paterphile. Yes. Oh God. Yeah. And then there's a priest who likes to say the word feck. They all like to say the word feck.
Fecking.
Until they forget that they're Irish, and then they're like, fuck. It's like, what about the feck? Anyway. Yeah, so I actually thought the premise was really interesting. Hey, what a surprise. Of like a guy just waking up one day and being like, you know what? I no longer like you. I was like, I've never encountered that before, but it does make for an interesting movie premise. And then when he comes clean, I thought that was really interesting as well. Like, so I guess what I should say is, like, to me, there are a couple of themes going on here. It's kind of like a breakup movie, but like a really weird one. I don't know. I should say, what were your thoughts on the movie? Let's start there. That would be better.
I don't know. Like, it didn't leave like a very strong impression. But it was enjoyable. It's kind of, it's funny. The acting is all really good. The story is that right amount of strange where you're just like, huh? This is interesting. Like, the island they're on is gorgeous. I don't know how anyone lives there because it's just grass with no buildings, but
yeah. I saw it with the wife, and we were like, so what time frame does this take place in? And at a certain point, I was thinking like, well, it could take place now because they're on an island that's so isolated. It probably doesn't make sense to have electricity or internet or anything like that. So maybe it takes place now, but it takes place in 1923.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and there's the Irish Civil War going on in the background, which is like, this seems like some sort of social commentary thing. I don't really know.
I don't know how that was supposed to kind of play into it.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was good.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like was trying to decipher how I felt about it, because there was a lot of different elements that I really enjoyed on it. I actually really liked the ending too, which is a new one for me with Martin McDonagh's movies. I think so. One thing is, I think the movie kind of goes around in circles a little bit, maybe a little hard in some areas where it's like, so the main thrust of the movie doesn't work if Colin Farrell's character is at least intelligent, or if he wasn't a clingy boyfriend, which he is in this movie. And so, like, the whole idea of Colin Farrell's character Pedrick constantly like, wait, why did you break up with me? I need to put you back in my life. Oh, hey, look, it looks like we're getting along again. See, isn't this great? Maybe we shouldn't, like, break up. Oh, there's a finger, or whatever. Like, oh, he's mad at me again. Oh, but now he's not mad at me again. Well, he's mad at me. I need to try and solve this problem. And it's like, I think, like, it feels long, but I think it's intentional, like, to the point where one more time when it happens, I'm watching it near the end, and it's like, oh my God, I know what's going to happen here. why can't you just leave it well enough alone, Pedrick? Just like leave it well enough alone. But I think that's a good sign of it's the sign of a good character study, because we're not trying to logic the movie away. You know, we're not cinema dinging him like, oh, smart character makes dumb decision. It's like, no, this is completely in character for him to be this obsessive about it and this stubborn about it.
Yeah.
That was, so one, it felt like a breakup movie, and two, it felt like hey, like, this is going to sound terrible, so I got to preface it. In The Departed, Matt Damon is like, I'm Irish. I'm so stubborn that I'll never move on anything. And I think if this isn't working for you, you got to end it, because I can. I'm Irish. I'm going to take it all the way to the grave. There's a very real sense of that in this movie, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, and yeah, because that's eventually where Pedrick settles on the issue.
Yeah. Well, they both do, right? So
not really. I mean, Colm is at a certain point is like, you know what? Let's let it go. After it kind of escalates past a certain point.
Right. Well, and that's I guess the third thing about the movie is like, it's a movie all about actions and consequences too, which I guess is pretty generic. Most movies are like that. But it's explicitly talking about like actions, consequences, and commitment to those actions. So like when Pedrick talks to Coleman, it's like, wow, it seemed like that went really well. And then all of a sudden a finger shows up at his doorstep. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, these actions do have consequences. Pedrick, like, and again, that's why I keep going back to like, this is a really interesting breakup movie. Like, you know, all you had to do if you really cared about him was just leave him alone, and none of this would happen. The final thing it's about is like the pursuit of artistic perfection versus happiness, which a lot of movies are about too. But that's kind of like the final thing I think about with this movie. Anyway.
Yeah, trying to like create some sort of a legacy and have a more serious view of life versus being one of life's nice guys.
Yeah, well, that and the idea of, in order to create something that outlasts you, you must be miserable to do it. You know, like my reading of it, which my wife was like, oh, I didn't see it that way, was the time that Brendan Gleeson was spending with Colin Farrell, or the time that Colm was spending with Pedrick, was like he was very happy. But because he was happy and content, he wasn't doing what he thought he needed to do. And when he realized that, that's when he had a hard break from Pedrick. And he was able to do what he wanted to do. It literally cost him, his fingers. But that idea of, and, he's talking to the priest and they're like, so are you in the despair? And he's like, yep, I'm in the despair. And it's like, you can either be happy or you can be miserable. And
I don't know,
because
when he initially stops talking to Pedrick, the priest asks him about despair, and he's like, no, I'm not really. I'm pretty good. And then later, after he's cut his finger off and stuff, and things are getting worse.
Yeah,
then
he's to the breaking point. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, he's cut off. Spoiler: he cuts off all the fingers of one hand. Mm-hmm. So when he's lost all of his fingers, then he's like, yeah, the despair has come back. It's come back a little bit.
Well, it's not only that, but the other major thing that shifts in the fourth act, which again, spoiler, I don't know. I guess just spoilers for the whole movie at this point.
Sure.
Because that happens after the donkey chokes on his finger and dies.
Yeah.
That's when he goes to confess. And so I think in that end, like, I feel like Colm was okay with what he was doing as long as he was hurting himself. But as soon as he caused such deep, deep pain for Pedrick, that was when he was like, now I've gone too far. But that's a good point. I didn't think about that. I just thought like him being miserable, him not being with his friend and things like that, and him being like a cold-hearted bastard was like, this is me being able, like, putting up a front and being able to do the thing I want to do. But yeah, that's interesting. I also noticed, like, I think that it's interesting that it's when he truly hurts his friend as opposed to just hurting himself. Like, hurts his friend emotionally, but also takes something away from his friend.
Like, hurts his friend in a more serious way.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and in a way that's irreconcilable, too. Like, he's permanently changed him. Which, it was just, I feel like it was just bad timing. Because, like, I think if the sister was still there, that'd be something. But anyway, but yeah, that's why I think, like, finally he wants to be happy again, but by then that point, it's just too late. That's why I really like the ending. It's such a downer, but it's so good. That's why when you're like, oh yeah, it's fun and it's funny, I'm like, it is all of those things. And then the ending comes and it's just like, gosh, give me the miserable pills.
So what do you think of Mrs. McCormick?
She's the old woman, right?
Yeah, she's the banshee, so to speak.
So funny. I don't know. It shouldn't have been funny, but I love how she just like randomly would appear and people would be like, what the fuck? I wasn't paying enough attention to see how her presence had started influencing events in the movie. Mm-hmm. But I think it was the Banshee of Inisherin. Yeah, that's what I kind of thought that it would be about, and not sort of like the bait and switch title thing, which is what he did with Seven Psychopaths. I guess those are like he chose Martin McDonagh cast a perfect creepy looking old woman to play that part.
Yeah.
What did you think of her?
I mean, it's interesting. I'm still trying to figure out like what her larger role is besides being just kind of creepy and funny,
and foreshadowing and
well, that's
foreshadow
the thing.
device.
Like, well, yeah, because like Colm's the piece of music that he writes, he calls the Banshees of Inisherin, and Pedrick says, well, there aren't any banshees here, and he's like, well, I think there are. They just don't like scream to herald death. They just sort of like watch with amusement, and that's what Mrs. McCormick does, right? She watches everything with amusement. But yeah, so it's like she shows up she's at the lake where so I guess spoilers, Pedrick and Colm's conflict sort of spills over into other areas where like Pedrick is friends with Dominic, and then he causes this whole thing when he sees Colm and the constable sitting together where he gets on the constable's bad side, and the constable beats him up, and then later Colm beats up the constable. Pedrick's sister leaves the island because she hates everyone on it.
She's basically Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh God, she is.
I want so much more from this provincial life.
Colm cuts off all the fingers of his left hand, like progressively throughout the movie, and throws them at Pedrick's door. And eventually Pedrick's donkey, Jenny, who's like his other best friend essentially, eats one of the fingers, chokes on it, and dies, which is what Colm feels super guilty about, and kind of is their point of no return. And then Pedrick basically tells Colm, he's like, I'm going to burn down your house at 2 p.m. on Sunday. If you're in it or not, I don't care. Which he eventually does. He does burn the house down, and he takes Colm's dog away to make sure the dog doesn't get burned. And then when the constable comes to kick his ass, Miss McCormick finds him and leads him away where his son, Dominic, has committed suicide by drowning in the lake. So, yeah, and then it ends with, Colm's house is burned down, but he left while it was on fire, so he's fine.
The Deus Ex Machina there? Is that
the Death Ex Machina was the constable was going to probably kill Pedrick. And then his son dies, which, saves Pedrick. So
the only good thing Dominic did in the movie.
Yeah. Seriously. So then Pedrick returns Colm's dog to him, and they kind of have this like acrimonious farewell. And then Miss McCormick is there, sitting in the burnt-out ruin of Colm's house. And it's also interesting because she passes by Pedrick earlier, and it's like there will be 1, maybe 2 deaths before the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're thinking like, oh, like which of our central characters is it going to be? And it's none of them. It's the donkey and Dominic.
I love how Dominic isn't a central character.
He's not really.
No,
like it's not Colm, it's not Pedrick, it's not Siobhan.
Right. Yeah. It's just Barry Keoghan.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess the other big question is like, why? What happened to Dominic? It's not a huge question, but it's one I'm curious about. What do you think happened to Dominic?
He drowned himself.
Yeah, you think it was suicide?
Yeah.
Based off of one of the side stories is that Dominic has the hots for Siobhan. And so he finally musters up the courage to. So also, Dominic is the equivalent of the village idiot, which you already mentioned. So he goes up to her and he's like been creepy to her through most of the movie. And then he goes up to her and he's like, "Do you think you could ever love an idiot like me?" And she's like, "No." Like, I mean, it's a lot nicer, you know. She lets him down very easily. Which again, this is another movie. I'm gonna call it Incel Culture in 1923. But anyway, it's like Don't Worry, Darling Part 2.
Oh my god.
No. It's not.
At least
but
he doesn't put her in the metaverse.
Siobhan finally like leaves the island boat and she wakes up and she's in modern time. She's like, I knew I was reading for good reason. It's like the Truman Show mixed with Don't Worry, Darling, mixed with like, I don't know. Anyway, so you think that's what kills him, or do you think it's just like everything else in the movie, a bunch of straws that breaks the camel's back?
Well, I mean, I think he's a miserable drunk up to that point.
That's true.
So I think that was just kind of the last straw.
Do you think he was like, for lack of a better term, do you think he was like mentally handicapped?
Probably. He certainly seemed like it.
Yeah, he certainly seemed like he was playing
like most
it.
Barry Keoghan characters. He certainly seemed like it.
Great. Now I have to feel. You know what? I'm not gonna feel guilty because what's his name? Eddie Redmayne always plays like characters with like either emotional or like mental or sexual problems, and he seems like a completely normal guy. So maybe Barry Keoghan's the same way. Barry Keoghan is my new Jesse Plemons.
But you like Jesse Plemons.
I do like Jesse Plemons now. That's why I'm afraid in like 5 years I'm going to be like, that Barry Keoghan, I was wrong about him. So
yeah, other than the killing of a sacred deer, I do not care for Barry Keoghan's work.
Yeah. Was he really good in that?
Yeah,
or was
really
everything else good in it and he was just kind of there?
Both he and Colin Farrell were very good in that movie.
He and Colin Farrell have been in 3 movies. Can you name all 3 of them?
Well,
Together,
Killing of a Sacred Deer, Banshees of Inisherin.
Yep.
And Total Recall.
I wish. Barry Keoghan as
and the Batman.
Woman. The Batman. There you very good. I couldn't figure out the third one. They have nothing to do with each other in the Batman. Stupid Joker cameo at the end.
Oh god, that was my least favorite scene in the whole movie.
That was hyper cringe, sir. That's the kids say. Actually, no kids say that. It's only millennials who are trying to sound cool. Yeah, that was definitely up there with my least favorite scenes in that movie. The one scene where John Turturro's explaining the backstory to Bruce Wayne very explicitly, and Bruce Wayne had like a weird piece of hair that's up there too.
Oh yeah, he has his dyed black hair pasted onto his forehead with tape.
It's the Rudy Giuliani dye. It's like, you have hair personnel there. Is that just like Matt Reeves doing rolling take after rolling take? And they're like, oh, we'll use these. And someone's like, he didn't have the hair person come in between takes. That's fine. No one's going to notice. Everyone notices. Everyone notices.
Yeah, my other least favorite bit of that movie is the back-to-back Thomas Wayne origin story scenes. Where he goes from Alfred straight to Falcone, then straight back to Alfred.
Alfred. No, Bruce, your father was, in fact, a good person. We need to do this contractually because
Your father
Warner Brothers
was a good man.
Yes, Bruce. Your father was precious, and you were precious to him, Bruce. I feel like Andy Serkis should try and sneak in a little bit of Gollum in every movie he's in now. Like he's legitimate. He's like legitimized as a good actor at this point, right?
I don't know.
Not if you take the Batman into account, but other than that, no, he was fine in Batman. He was fine in the Batman. This isn't an Andy Serkis hate podcast, okay? I like Andy Serkis, even though he shits on animators. Yeah, except for maybe I feel like Sean Astin and Andy Serkis don't get along very well. I don't think their experience was very.
I wish Alfred was CGI and Andy Serkis did mocap for the CGI Alfred.
It's like a hyper realistic version of like the cartoon, the Batman the Animated Series Alfred, because Andy Serkis didn't want to put on a bald cap.
But for some reason he walks around like an ape.
Alfred just has these really long, lanky arms. He's like crawling on the ceilings like Gollum. It's like, yes, Master Wayne, do you need your soup now? Oh my god, that'd be hilarious. Hey, that's how he cleans the webs in the Batcave. He can climb on the walls like Gollum. It's all good.
So Batman may be busy, but Bruce Wayne also has a life of his own. As he drops from the ceiling and then starts crawling around on all fours and eats like an orange with his foot.
They get Terry Notary to do the other half of the motion capture.
and you just have Robert Pattinson like just the whole time. Like not acting like Alfred is a monkey at all. Playing the scene completely straight.
Alfred, bring me a steak so I can fuck it. For some reason, I've been getting a ton of the Lighthouse memes. I don't know why.
That's awesome.
But they've been sent to me. Like, I keep getting them, and I'm like, why has no one made like a thing about like Robert Pattinson being like, I'm going to bed and I'm taking this steak with me? Like, why is
no?
He
said the one thing I want most in the world right now is a big, juicy steak. My God, if I had a big juicy steak, I'd fuck it.
Oh, man, who was apparently Henry Cavill? Like, I know we've gone way off topic, but this is tangentially related to Robert Pattinson. Apparently, Henry Cavill was in the running for the role of Edward in the Twilight Saga.
Whoa.
To which Henry Cavill was like, oh yeah, that would have been interesting. And like, I feel like the world would never be the same if he were Edward. For one, he would rip off his shirt at the end of New Moon. Don't ask how I know. I haven't seen the movie. People have told me about it. He'd rip off his shirt and everyone would be like, oh, maybe Jacob wasn't the most buff person on set. All the women swoon for Edward again. There would be no Team Jacob. Anyway. But yeah, it's funny that Batman and Superman are feuding over who would have been better in Twilight.
No one. Those movies are universally panned.
I heard Eclipse was like very tongue in cheek, and so is like the best of the lot because it's kind of like a little bit goofy.
Is that the one with the vampire baseball game?
Maybe that's the one. That's like the third one that was directed by the guy who did 30 Days of Night. And
I don't know.
I
know all I know is that at some point there is a vampire baseball game, and that sounds like the weirdest idea.
It's like, oh, I got this fly ball home run. Turns into a bat, flies up to catch it,
and then gets like murdered by the baseball. Turns into a bat. Randy Johnson blows him up.
They go to have hot dogs. One of them eats one of the hot dogs, unaware that they're like garlic bratwurst. It starts burning on sight. Why would you do that?
It was Italian.
Why the Italian sausage? Why? Freaking pasta bake-off.
What I don't understand is, like, in all the vampire movies, why don't they just go to Italy to escape the vampires?
And then we introduced Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, and like all of the vampires in Italy are immune to garlic. But also,
you could go to Italy or like Turkey.
Yeah, it's gonna
Either
be like
way,
Romania.
There's so much garlic, you'll never worry about vampires.
Or Gilroy.
Gilroy?
Yeah, Gilroy. You know, have you ever been to Gilroy?
Oh, Gilroy, the
California.
garlic festival that got shot up?
Yes, Gabe. The Gilroy Garlic Festival that got shot up. Because it's the only place.
It's the only way I know about it.
Gilroy's the only place.
Shooting.
It's the only place, like, anywhere near Silicon Valley that has affordable housing. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that there was violence there.
Jeez.
I mean, okay. What do you want me to say? Like, yeah. However, it's also where there are fields and fields of garlic. Like, they have that huge garlic. So if you're driving up, because you probably have rarely done it, but you drive up 5, and then you cut across 256 or something like that, which is Pacheco Pass, to get to 101 from 5 up in Northern California. You then drive through Gilroy for half of that time. And, like, if you have your windows down, like, your car is just going to absorb the smell of garlic for, like, 15 minutes. It's like, you know, and there's a giant factory that you pass that's just a garlic factory. And even if you have your doors closed and even if you have it circulating only clean air that does not smell like garlic, your car will smell like garlic. It's that much. It's that saturated. Yeah, it's like the garlic capital of California. The majority of garlic comes from there, I think, still. Yeah. So, like, that's where you want to set your vampire story, you know? Count Olrock is looking for land in Gilroy to purchase.
Wait, who's looking for land?
Count Olrock?
Orlok?
Orlok? Is it Orlok? Maybe I'm thinking of Symphony of the Night.
I don't know.
Yeah, but isn't that what Vlad goes by in Bram Stoker's Bram Stoker's Dracula?
No, that's Nosferatu.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. I haven't watched Nosferatu. I just know they have that one scene where everyone, like all of the horror fans, are like, "This is the best part," and it's like the guy's looking at the count from far away, and then it cuts back to the guy, and then it cuts back to the count, and he's like right up near him, and it's like, "Oh my god, the first jump cut horror scare." Okay, all right. Speaking of scary things, the Banshee of Inisherin. What?
Mrs. O'Riordan, the no news lady.
Oh my god.
That's like a Martin McDonagh specialty. Is a character you hate so much you want them to die violently right there. Like, I just want Carrie Condon to just bash her head in with a rolling pin, like the dude whose head explodes at the beginning of Irreversible. Like, she's just the least likable character on the planet.
Wait a second. In Irreversible, like, does Vincent Cassel and Monica Bellusci's characters are married in that movie, right?
I think they're engaged.
Okay. So does Vincent Cassel get revenge against the person that, like, does terrible things to Monica Bellucci in that movie? Is that how it starts?
So it starts with him and his friend trying to get revenge on the guy, and they end up killing someone else.
I know it's not played for comedy, I realize. I'm just thinking of the Martin McDonagh way of it. Like, Martin McDonagh's Irreversible. Like, oops, looks like we got the wrong target.
Oh, God, that would be awful.
Brendan Gleeson in the corner, like, I think we could have done a better job of that one there. And Colin Farrell just like, oh, shite.
No news head explodes. That's all I want. Why couldn't Mrs. McCormick have killed her instead of the donkey? I like that donkey.
Because... Well, we're supposed to like both of the characters that were killed, I think.
I don't know. I could Dominic. I could take him or leave him.
I mean, I agree with that, but yeah, I still think we were supposed to like both of them, even if that was not the case at all. Actually, I speaking of like completely one completely hateable characters, the policeman. I thought they did a really good job of establishing that in a couple of very quick and efficient ways.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
one of those ways involved staring at his like tiny cock for like 3 minutes. Like,
I know.
Why?
Yeah, he only appears for 10 seconds at a time, and he's so hateable in every 10-second interval.
It's so good. So I thought that was really good, to the point of like yeah, and it's revealed also that like in sort of like middle of the movie, after Pedrick is drunk off of his arse, that's when he reveals that the cop likes to fiddle with Dominic.
Mm-hmm.
And Dominic's like, "Oh no, I didn't tell him," but that might have led to, the suicide, as it were. But yeah, like that, and sort of the moments of like, I was expecting Colin Farrell's character to kind of fight back against the policeman, and then to see, the complicated relationships that we all form, where Brendan Gleeson is supposed to be hating Colin Farrell's character and ends up protecting him, and all this stuff. It was all very good.
Yep.
Yeah,
because it's the thing. Brendan Gleeson is like cut Colin Farrell's character out of his life, but he's still like, he still cares about him. Like, he still kind of watches out for him and picks him up when he's down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the nice moment is when he like picks up Colin Farrell's character, puts him on the coach. They start driving back, and then you can almost see in Brendan Gleeson's face that he's like starting to care about him again. Mm-hmm. And that's when he stops. Like, Brendan Gleeson's fantastic in this. Like, everyone's really good. Well, almost everyone's really good in this movie.
Well, yeah, because Colin Farrell's a pretty amazing actor. Like, he's one of the best out there.
I feel like he's still underrated.
Because
he was in freaking Total Recall.
Brendan Gleeson's always great. Carrie Condon's excellent.
Yeah.
All the little side characters are good. So yeah, I mean, the thing with Colin Farrell, I think it's that he's an amazing actor. And even though he is like a good-looking dude, he's just not leading man material.
That's what everyone's kind of said about him.
For a long time. Yeah. He's tried. Like, he's been in leading roles, and it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
When he's in like an ensemble movie like this, or when he's like part of a duo like this, or in Bruges, he's really good. Or if he's just a side character, he's amazing.
Right.
Like the Penguin.
Penguin, his character in... I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago, but like the Penguin, his character in Widows. Mm-hmm. You didn't see it, but his character in The Gentleman, he's the best part of that movie. Well, no, it's not true. Charlie Hunnam's also in it with his British accent. And you know what? The Gentleman... It's fun. I liked it, even though it's pretty racist, in a very bad way. But Charlie Hunnam's great in it, and what's his name? Hugh Grant is great in it. He's not mispronouncing the word mayonnaise. It's fantastic. He puts on a really goofy accent. He's great in it. The way everything wraps up is really good. Guy Ritchie, like, he was like, I can't, like, Disney's Aladdin broke me. I need to go back and do a Guy Ritchie movie. God damn it. But yeah, Bullseye, I don't know. You're actually one of the few people who is like, Colin Farrell was good as Bullseye, right?
Oh yeah, he's a great Bullseye.
I agree. But then again, I'm a Daredevil, a Ben Affleck Daredevil apologist. Just like Ben Affleck should just never be in a superhero movie, as some people would say, Colin Farrell should never lead a movie. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. There's something about just like putting him in the leading role. He doesn't have the gravitas, I guess, of like a Brad Pitt, or maybe he just is like not good at being bland and boring unless it's in a Martin McDonagh movie.
Yeah,
Apparently.
I don't know.
Because that's what he's supposed to be in this. It's like he's supposed to be dull, and yet we're still like endeared to him.
You're dull,
That was
Pedrick.
Pedrick, you're dull. I'm not dull. My goodness.
Is it too much to just want one boring man not to talk to me again?
Oh. It's not. It's not. It's not that one boring man's not talking to you. It's that specific boring man. Yeah. I also like that idea. I guess maybe like since I rewatched Avatar and realized that like Jake Sully, our main character, is a moron. I've kind of liked watching these movies where like kind of a like The Irishman, you know, Robert De Niro's character is dumb.
Oh,
and like
yeah.
it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun watching these dumb characters like where maybe it's kind of mean, but you're like looking at it, and instead of looking at it from their point of view, you know, like you're not really supposed to relate to the dumb characters. You're supposed to kind of judge them. I'm sure I'm going to grow out of this phase, but like I kind of appreciate that, where like you can look back on it and be like, oh, there's something like unsettling about them, but also something endearing. Like you kind of want good things to happen to Pedrick until it gets to that point where you're like, Pedrick, just stop. Just please stop.
Pedrick,
like,
stop, please stop what you're doing.
Like, you're not, why aren't you understanding this? Just stop. And like, he can't understand it. That's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yep. Yeah, I sometimes think about The Irishman and how the lead in that is just so stupid.
I know.
Like, and that's the thing. Like, that's his character, is he's a dumb guy.
And it's 3 hours of that too. I wonder if Martin McDonagh watched The Irishman and he's like, oh,
I need to make a movie about a dumb Irishman.
Well, okay, so that's the other thing is like, the other thing I liked about it when I thought about it was that Colm isn't exactly a genius either.
No, but
Like-
he's just smarter than everyone else on the island.
I think I think like Siobhan kind of said it the best when she's like when she just calls him out on his inability to remember that Mozart was in the 18th century, not the 17th. It's like, guys, we're supposed to think that Colm is smarter than everyone on the island, but really he's just as stubborn and dumb in a different way than everyone else, because he's literally cutting off his fingers because someone talks to him. Like,
I mean, he's crazy.
he is crazy. Yeah. I mean, he might be a brilliant composer, but I don't think he's quite as smart as he thinks he is.
How many appendages have other great artists chopped off themselves? Thinking of Van Gogh.
He's the only one I can think of. But Van Gogh also was not a smart man.
Van Gogh was... we don't know how smart he was, but he also was like incurably insane.
Yeah. Well, but like, you know, I wonder if that also plays into it. Like, Van Gogh would have been dead by 1923, right?
Yep.
He was the 1800s, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, like that might have also been playing into it, because like watching Brendan Gleeson try to play the violin with 3 fingers was like,
oh yeah, that was a good scene.
Yeah, it was, but it was also like most of this movie, it was kind of like an exercise in frustration. I guess that's the other thing. So, did the movie feel like it was meandering? At any point were you wondering like, where is this thing going?
I mean, no. Yes and no. Like, usually if I'm wondering where is this thing going, it's not in a like bad sense. It's like, ooh, where is this thing going?
Okay.
You know, it doesn't have like the tightly structured plot of whatever steaming pile of shit Disney's crapping out these days. But you know, that's fine.
Okay. Next question. So one of my favorite scenes is that very sort of like theatrical stagey scene where the bartender and the guy who was the regular at the public house was like, they were saying the exact same things as the camera was like rack focusing to them. I really like that scene, but it was very like playwrighty.
It was very theater.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole movie is very theater in the sense that there's so much talking. I mean, I think the one way it's not very theater is that it doesn't rely purely on dialogue to convey the story. There is still enough visual storytelling for it to be cinematic.
So it makes me ask the question, like, at what point are you okay with the theatricality of the script, and at what point is it too far? Like, we'll take this for an example. Was the dialogue and the amount of dialogue distracting?
No.
I'll
answer your question. This movie does not violate the rule. I think it's once you get to a point where the movie's not showing you anything, it's just people talking about things, and that's the only way you get any information. That is that's where I would say it goes too far.
Okay.
And sort of like at that point it is just a play. Because like, yeah, you read Shakespeare and you know the text.
Oh,
assumes,
happy dagger! Let me thrust you into my heart.
Yeah,
I thrust the dagger into my heart, and now I die.
Zero visual storytelling. It is like it's like theater for blind people. So yeah, as long as it's not doing any of that crap, it's fine by me.
Okay. At what point do you think the wordplay goes? Like, do you enjoy scenes that have a lot of like fun or ridiculous wordplay? Because that's the scene to me that was the theater scene.
Yeah, it's fine. Like, especially if it's the aesthetic of the movie.
Okay. Which of course, one of the reasons why it's able to kind of convey both. Like you were saying, it doesn't like hold your hand for everything. Although I would say good theater, there's a lot of subtext to what they're saying, and that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes the
I am slain. The subtext is that he is slain.
No, I said good. Gabe, I said good theater.
So you're not considering Shakespeare to be good theater?
I would say it's theater for the masses. Yeah. He was writing the Marvel movies of his day. Yeah.
It's true. That's why they're not good.
I don't know. I still love Hamlet, especially Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet, where they turn any little potential of subtext into explicit sex scenes.
I mean, 45-year-old Kenneth Branagh is not going to pass up a chance to do all that shit with 20 years younger than him, Kate Winslet.
Oh my god. Oh man, every time. Oh god. Plus I love Derek Jacobi, Derek Jacobi. I don't know. It's I mean, is he still alive? I thought he might have passed away. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I thought the cinematography in the movie, we talked about it a little bit, and I was like, you know what? I feel like a lot of Martin McDonagh's movies really like to take advantage of the location that they take place in, with the exception of maybe Seven Psychopaths. I almost said Seven Samurai. Maybe with the exception of Seven Psychopaths, because like Ebbings, Missouri, the landscape plays a big role. In Bruges, the landscape is huge, like shooting these wide shots. And then Inisherin takes a huge, like, the environment that they're in is like a huge character that the camera captures. So I like that aspect of it. And then that way, when he pulls in for really intimate close-ups, you know, it's good. It's filmmaking 101. Like, take advantage of your masters, use your close-ups sparingly and effectively. and I think he does. And the music by Carter Burwell is good. I really liked the score. It was really, I thought it was really good. Although all of Carter Burwell's scores, like I have to listen to them multiple times before I can actually like get the themes going in my head. They're very much like the environmental feel.
Yeah.
Plays more of a role to me than the actual explicit melodies and things.
Yeah, I mean the score I thought was good. It didn't. It's not like super memorable, but it works for what it is.
Maybe it's just because I like Carter Burwell's minimalist scores. Then what else was I going to talk about on this movie? I feel like there was one more thing. I don't know. Do you think it's going to be an awards powerhouse?
Could be. Martin McDonagh movies are strange in that they always have that potential, but you never know if people are going to latch onto it or not.
It's like Martin Scorsese, he's like the definition of like it's an honor to be nominated.
Yeah.
What was the budget for Three Billboards?
It's like $10 million, I think.
Yeah, 12 to 15-ish. According to Wikipedia, it's 12 to 15. So yeah, about 10. In Bruges was about 10. So actually, In Bruges was a cheaper movie to make than Three Billboards just because of inflation.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, you mean this was cheaper?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, Banshees. I said In Bruges, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Would you be interested in watching any of Martin McDonagh's plays?
No, I don't like plays.
Any last thoughts on the Banshees?
No, I mean it's this one was a weird one for me where it's like I liked it, but it didn't leave a super strong impression. Like I didn't walk out going like with any major feelings about it.
Yeah. That's funny. I kind of felt the same way, and then I started talking about it, and then I was like, you know what? This is actually like, this is really working for me. And I kind of forgot all of the things that were bugging me about like the middle of the movie and how annoying Pedrick was in the middle of the movie. I'm a nice guy and all that stuff, which I guess we didn't really talk about, but like that discussion that they had, that was the other very like theater thing, was like explicitly stating like, you know, like the philosophical discussion as it were of like, I'm a nice guy. It's like nobody remembers nice guys. They remember artists. They remember great works of art. And I was like, ooh, let me let me analyze that. That's true. I don't remember nice guys. We do only remember, you know, and I'm like, oh my god.
But I remember the nice guys.
I remember some of the nice guys. I do remember the other guys, though. But I thought that was an interesting thing. But again, that was also another moment I was like, oh, you can tell he's a playwright. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I liked that as kind of like one of the statements of the film. And like I said, like that idea by the end of the movie where the roles have reversed of, you know, Pedrick now hates Colm and Colm is like, no, we should be friends. And how it's like, how fragile relationships can be and how delicate they can be and how easily they can break. And, you know, it's, I don't know. I thought it was like, yeah, it ended up sticking with me a lot more than I thought it was going to.
Well, that's cool though.
We had opposite reactions to this. You're Colm and I'm Pedrick, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I'll let you have the last word.
If this movie left a greater impression on you than it did me, let us know at video@underthewheels.com. Also, like, follow, subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought the last word was just going to be feck.
Feck. You say feck so much, it became like... That did become a little irritating.
Yeah. It's like,
fuck.
well, and then they did, and you're like, wait a second.
Is feck another word?
Is feck another, like,
Does it mean something different?
They're like, okay, so my wife was like, I did not need to see the policeman naked for that amount of time. And I was like, I think they were worried that they weren't going to get an R rating because they kept saying feck and not fuck. And so maybe they were like, maybe the Academy, maybe like the Motion Picture Association of America doesn't know that feck and fuck are the same thing. So we better put in an explicit penis shot in the movie. And yeah, so anyway. But yeah, I don't know. It's confusing. Martin McDonagh, come on, be a little bit more consistent in your movie. Shame on you. Well, I mean, you know, the Banshees of Inisherin is a feck of a movie. And on that note, I am Matthew.
And I'm Gabe.
And you have just been Under the Wheels. That would have been better.
Called it Moore's bitch-ass hypothesis.
Moore's load of shit.
Moore's conjecture, more like it.
It actually has gotten really good. Like, the fact that the M1 chip is so small and has... I know this is super, like, in the weeds, and I really don't know much about it, but the M1 chip is really small and really energy efficient. The problem is that Intel and AMD have to work to make sure that the architecture for older stuff works with all of their processors. So that's why Apple is like doing their own thing. But I don't know. I don't know how long they're going to stick with this. I feel like they were just like, we need a Steve Jobsian type thing. Let's make our own processor. And now they're kind of like, did we do the right thing?
I just want a computer with 2 USB ports where I don't have to interact with anything made by the Microsoft Corporation. Those are my 2 criteria for a computer.
Finished.